Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call this March 10th, Board of Supervisors of Montgomery County, Virginia meeting to order. We'll begin the meeting with a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance led by County Administrator Angie Hill.
Please rise as you're able for a moment of silence and then join me in the pledge. Let us pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you. Tonight we have two items under presentations. The first is Virginia Department of Transportation. We have Mr. David Clark here with us this evening. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Good evening. I was looking at my notes, I believe it was exactly a month ago. I was here just before it started to do some interesting weather. Unfortunately, it was a little more interesting than we cared for. The first predictions of snow, there was not a lot that Monday night, but then the rest of the week was pretty rough. And as you all know, everyone pretty much was hit pretty hard with it, whether it's on the road or in their own yards. And we spent a lot of time the last month basically cleaning up a lot of that. I cover 4 counties. Southern part of Montgomery and Floyd would probably hit the hardest with ice and trees down, things like that. Giles, northern part of Montgomery County, got hit more with heavy rain, flash flooding of the small streams and things like that. So we've had a little bit of everything, and that's pretty much what we've been doing over the last month. Did manage to get some patching done, and this is pothole season, so they're out, and we're trying to get those at the same time as we're cleaning up the debris. Of course, our guys worked quite a bit that week, just getting roads open, and in fact, the night of all the ice, it was about all they could do to keep Route 11 open, and several other of the roads in the residency. Dry Run got hit really hard with flooding, and we're putting that back together. In fact, it's mostly completed. We rented some trucks to do some of the hauling of the heavy stone and used our guys. Came in under a decent amount, much less than we initially anticipated. Still some work to do on Dry Run to get it all back together. If y'all aren't familiar with Dry Run, it's kind of in the northern part of the county, cuts between Mount Tabor and Catawba Road. It's a gravel road, follows a creek. That creek crosses it probably 6 or 7 times. And so every single crossing just pretty much got blown out. And there's people that live on it, so we were trying to get them out. And they've been working on that pretty much since the storm. That's really all I have. I know we're going to, I've been in correspondence with county staff about setting up the 6-year plan public hearing, and we'll do that, I believe, in May. The board members like to do a ride around the county. We can do it before that. After that, I would like if we do the 6-year plan public hearing in May, I would like to get the plan adopted at the June meeting. Either one of the June meetings would be fine, but would like to get it before the end of the fiscal year. So keep that in mind as we try to plan the kind of the road viewers trip, which we do sometimes. So that's all I have.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, I don't often do this, but I'll comment back, and everybody get out your pens. Vicki has let me know that the 6-year plan public hearing will be on May the 12th. And then that means we have to vote on it by our June the 23rd meeting. And then we'll do a road tour maybe the weekend of the 7th or 14th, and we'll have our staff coordinate that. So
Great.
Thank you. I'm going to see if anybody has any questions. I will start with Supervisor King.
On Stanley Road, we still have them barriers up.
Mm-hmm.
Are they still?
Yep, I was asked that by a member of the audience, as a matter of fact. Found the end of a pipe underneath there. So we've got a drop inlet that it's kind of a spare that's been on our lot. We're going to try to get that in there. So that it's up and level, and that that should keep it open and keep it from getting buried again, and that the drainage should function there then.
Okay, and I do need to mention there's several roads in my district that has a lot of potholes.
Yes. Yeah.
And one of them on Pilot Road, I think it's 4900 block, there's some pretty good sized potholes on that one.
4,900? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I know you're gonna get to them.
We will get to them, yeah. Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Supervisor Kitts?
Since I know you're familiar with the things I always harp on, I'll leave those alone because I know we're still working on it.
We are.
But I want to thank you for being here because I know right after that, it was a mess would be an understatement. And I want to thank all your people for what you did to make sure the roads did stay clear and for the work that you had to do. But that's all I have right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supervisor Bay?
The residents know of any potholes, is the best way to go up on the VDOT site, or is it to contact us to get it on your list?
The calling the 800 number works very well. They look at that daily,
Okay.
the superintendents, and it gets assigned to them. It gets called in, it gets assigned to them directly by somebody who knows the area.
Can you list out the 800 number?
I can never remember. It's 1-800, is it Call Road? Something Road. I can never remember it.
Four roads. The number 4 or just F-O-U-R? F-O-R-O, 2 R's? 4 roads, F-O-R-O-A-D-S. Thank you.
Okay. Supervisor Biggs?
Well, David, do you want to make the announcement? The rest of us got the email about finally Brush Mountain Estates with Evergreen Trail and Buck Mountain Ridge being taken into VDOT after we make the corrections. Would you like to talk about that a little bit?
That is going to happen. I think we've got a punch list that's agreeable to the county and to VDOT staff, and as soon as we do a final inspection and get everything signed, we'll have that in the system.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to thank you. I know I've been after you for a whole year about this, but it's taken 20 years to actually happen. And I want to also publicly thank Chris Lawrence, who's not here with us
Oh, that's
tonight,
right,
for
yeah.
also.
Yep, we've been working with Chris.
Yeah,
very closely.
working on that, and I know the residents will be really, really happy. So thank you so much for bringing that to closure, and it won't take any money away from what we already have for rural addition, correct?
Correct, because the county is doing, we're not using any VDOT Rural Addition funds that are still available for, I know we're working on Opal right now, we've got probably a couple others that we're looking at.
Okay, well, thank you so much.
I
That's
spoke
all.
with Chris today about that a little bit, and just to update you, we need to take a look at exactly what the punch list will entail, and then we'll come back to you with a cost estimate of that, and then move forward from that point.
Yeah.
Supervisor Grasky?
I don't have any questions really tonight, but like my colleagues have said, thank you to everybody at VDOT and all their diligence over the last several weeks. And you mentioned you're in pothole season, so we'll just keep an eye out for things like that, and we'll give you another update here in a month. But thanks.
Great, thanks.
Vice Chair Fijikowski?
Yeah, to start listing potholes we'd be here for a while, so we know you all are looking for them, so that'll be fine.
Probably forming as we speak also.
Yes, probably. They're definitely growing, I know that. If they start out small, they won't be that way for long. Appreciate all the work that your crews have done, especially on the unimproved roads. They really took a beating. I had talked to you about some earlier, but I did forget to ask you about Willis Hollow. Do you know if anybody's made it out there?
I think we have, we've spoken to the resident out there who had called in about that.
Okay,
I think that's,
All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you for being here.
thanks.
All right, well, I just want to reiterate Mary's thanks, but also to make sure to extend to Mary, thanks for your diligence in making sure that got done and staying on top of it. So that's a huge accomplishment. I'm so glad to read that news. I don't have any questions. Thanks so much for being here tonight and for all the work that you guys are out there doing.
Great, thank you all.
Thank you. All right, our next presentation of the evening is a presentation of the fiscal year 2025-2026 proposed county budget. And County Administrator Angie Hill will give that presentation to us.
I will kick it off and then we'll pass it over to Mark for some more details. Good evening, board members. It's my pleasure to present the FY26 proposed budget to you this evening. You, the Board of Supervisors, and I have worked intentionally together throughout this year to bring clarity to the county's vision and priorities. I'm pleased to be able to incorporate our collaborative work and shared direction into the FY26 budget. For FY26, I am proposing a budget of $268.6 million. I'm recommending the real estate tax rate remain at 75 cents per $100 of assessed value. The State Department of Education provides school divisions with a calc tool, which is a spreadsheet that calculates state funding for each school division. And the tool is revised throughout the state budget process as legislation is introduced and approved. After sending the budget document to the printer on Friday morning, the school superintendent, Dr. Bragan, called me to let me know that a new calc tool had just been released. The estimated state revenue for MCPS as a result of the new calc tool increased approximately $1 million from $5.4 million to $6.4 million. Tonight, we'll be discussing the information and funding provided in the proposed budget and also sharing the impact of the revised state funding estimate for the schools. Before we get into the details of the proposed FY26 budget, I want to provide you with a few key highlights. It's important to note that while the board's priorities have remained consistent, needs in the public safety environment have increased over the past several years, resulting in the need for increased funding to implement career fire and emergency medical services personnel, while also supporting the Sheriff's Office and our highly valued volunteer fire and rescue agencies. This has shifted the overall allocation of funding slightly between the county's priorities. With that said, historically, more than 2/3 of the total budget has been allocated to the Montgomery County Public Schools. The proposed budget for fiscal year 26 is no different. While public safety is a critical county responsibility requiring additional funding, the proposed FY26 budget continues to allocate more than 2/3 of the budget to the schools. The necessity to provide adequate funding for public safety has caused a slight shift in the funding allocation between the functions of education and public safety. I'm recommending 11% of the budget be allocated for public safety, 22% for county functions other than public safety, and 67% of the budget be allocated for the schools. Another important item to note is new revenue for fiscal year 26. While the total budget increased by $14 million, total new resources in the proposed budget increased by $11.2 million. Based on the most recent state revenue estimate for school funding, this brings the total of new resources to $12.3 million. FY25 was unique in that after the county's tax rate was set, the state allocated more funding to MCPS than we had anticipated. This resulted in additional unallocated funding of $1.6 million in the FY25 budget. The county was able to use a significant portion of those funds to approve 8 new deputy positions for the Montgomery County Jail, fulfilling the sheriff's November 2024 request for critical public safety support. Another portion of these funds was used in the base budget to annualize the cost of 12 career firefighters and the deputy chief of training, as the FY25 approved budget included 10 months of funding to implement this initiative. While this budget includes some new county positions, not all budget requests could be accommodated. The proposed FY26 budget represents significant progress for our schools, public safety, and the county's general government functions, balancing the limited resources with our identified needs. Now, at this time, I would like to invite our Director of Management and Budget, Mark Magruder, to present more details of the proposed FY26 budget. In a day.
Okay, we ready? Good evening. I'd like to go over some of the details of the fiscal year 26 proposed budget. First thing I'd like to do is I'd like to give a little background on the county's budget process, just to kind of remind the board how we build the budget each year. The budget is built with two major components, base budget and addenda. The purpose of the two components is to separate the base of operations from the new items or initiatives added to the budget each year. The first component is the base budget target, which is the estimated minimum cost for providing continued services and operations. It shows how much it would cost in the next fiscal year to operate the same programs provided in the current fiscal year. In November of each year, county divisions are provided with base budget targets. And that base budget target provides a base of personnel and operating costs for the upcoming fiscal year. As you can see on the slide, the base budget target includes personnel costs. They're updated based on the current positions and benefits at the time the projection is put together. Operation and maintenance is capped at the current level, and then capital outlay, which is usually for one-time things, are removed. If you remember last year's budget, there were limited monies that were put in for one-time items. There was only one thing that was added in fiscal year 25 that was a one-time item, and that was for the registrar's office and the Office of Elections for the presidential election. And so we removed $43,000 in one-time cost for the cost of the presidential election. Most divisions don't have capital outlay, but some do have a permanent source of capital outlay that is allocated for equipment that is purchased annually, such as vehicles, like in the sheriff's office and the county general services department, and then for computer replacements. Talk a little bit about the second component, which is the addenda items. And those are items that are for new or expanded initiatives each year. Requests for addenda are above the base budget target, and they're shown as an addenda. Before recommending funding for an addenda request, the base budget is challenged to determine if the request can be funded within the base budget first. I want to talk a little bit about some changes that we made for the fiscal year 26 budget. The general government portion of the general fund, which consists of individual county divisions, has been further consolidated into 8 functional areas: general government administration, judicial administration, public safety, general services, health and welfare, parks, recreation and cultural, community development, and other agencies. For fiscal year 26, budgetary control will be set at the functional levels, permitting transfers between divisions within functional areas, as approved by the county administrator and reported to the board. This change provides for some distinct advantages. It permits transfers within each functional area without requiring board approval. It contributes to operational efficiency. It's going to reduce the number of budget amendments that are needed throughout the year, and it will better align the budget with the financial statement reporting that we do in the finance department.
And if you remember, we discussed this change at the November extended work session, and the primary reason for doing this is, as Mark said, to improve our operational efficiency.
Talk about a couple other changes for fiscal year '26. We're also going to change the accounting method. The county currently uses a cash basis for accounting for both budgetary and internal accounting purposes. Under this method, revenue is recognized when cash is received and expenses are recognized when they're paid. For fiscal year '26, the county will begin using modified accrual basis of accounting for both budget and internal accounting purposes. Revenue recognition will be very similar to the current method. Expenses will be recognized when goods and services are received or encumbered rather than when invoices are paid. The modified accrual basis of accounting will continue to be used for the county's audited annual consolidated financial report.
And we also discussed this in our November extended work session. It's important to improve the efficiency of our process. Sometimes purchases are made in June and we can't pay for them until July or August, and we have to ask for carryover items for those. And this will eliminate that. It'll help us with other efficiencies as we go throughout the year as well.
The next chart shows the new request for funding from the county divisions and schools for fiscal year '26. On the county side, roughly $8.5 million in new funding was requested by county divisions. On the school side, the schools requested $5.4 million for school operations and almost $1.3 million for the school nutrition fund. Their total request was $6.6 million. Taken together, total requests were just over $15 million. Estimated new undesignated revenue, as I reported back in early February, is right at $7.7 million. That generated a shortfall of $7.4 million. To fully fund all the requests, it would require a real estate tax rate increase of 6 cents. Talk a little bit about the historical budget allocation. The county has consistently provided a significant portion of the total county budget to Montgomery County Public Schools. Historically, over 2/3 of the budget has been allocated to the schools and 1/3 to the county. In fiscal year '23, the county began providing 24/7 fire and EMS coverage in eastern Montgomery and the Reiner area by utilizing career staff. The commitment to providing this service to citizens has necessitated changes in the traditional split of the total budget between the school system and the county. So this chart kind of shows the history going back to fiscal year '22. So since fiscal year '22, the allocation of the total budget has increased for the county's general government expenses to accommodate the board's commitment to public safety. And as you can see in 2022, 71% of the budget of the total budget went to schools, 29% to the county. For many years, that 70-30 split was very consistent. But starting in fiscal year '23, you can start to see that the percentage is moving more to the county side, and that is to address the career EMS 24/7 in 2 areas of the county. We began funding 12-hour career fire in Elliston in 2025, and we are proposing to move to 24-hour coverage in fiscal year '26.
And this does reflect the slight shift I spoke of earlier. The allocation between the county and the school shift is primarily related to the increased needs of public safety.
The next 2 charts compare fiscal year '22's approved budget to the fiscal year '26 proposed budget. And you can see, again, in fiscal year 2022, 71% of the total allocation went to the schools. And now in fiscal year '26, 67% is going to the schools. You also can see that the public safety piece went from 8% in 2022 to 11% in 2026. Talk a little bit about our revenue estimates. This chart shows new revenue estimated for the proposed budget and an updated projection based on new state funding for schools that were received last Friday from the state's new calculation tool. So in the first column, that's the proposed budget. New undesignated revenue was at $7.7 million. New designated revenue for the county is $1.3 million. Total new county revenue in total was roughly $9 million. On the school side, new state funding for schools was $2.2 million. New federal funding, just over $100,000. Total new school revenue was $2.3 million. So total new revenue was $11.3 million. With the updated calculation tool, that added $974,028 in new additional state funding for the schools for fiscal year 26. So really the only change that you see there is in the school number of new state funding going from $2.2 million to $3.2 million. Total new revenue in that column is $12.3 million. Talk a little bit about the distribution of new revenue. This chart shows the distribution of new revenue for the proposed budget as presented in the budget document. It also shows the distribution of new revenue for the new added revenue to the schools based on the new calc tool. So as you can see, for school operations, we've added just over $2.7 million. When you look at the allocation based on the proposed budget, 46% of the money goes to the schools, 54% goes to the county. But based on the new calculation tool with the new state revenue, that split becomes 50-50. So 50% of the new resources will go to the county, 50% will go to the schools.
And as you know, we shifted the budget calendar a little bit this year, and we're presenting this to you a week later so that we could get some more information as we went along. If we had followed our typical schedule, we wouldn't have these updated numbers, which we just got Friday, but it did help us to be able to at least include those in the presentation for this evening to be able to give you a little bit more context and determine what direction we can go with those dollars.
Okay, this next chart shows the revenue sources for the fiscal year 26 proposed budget. It shows a breakdown by individual category. I'd like to point out designated revenues are funds that are earmarked for specific purposes, and they total 42.7% of the total budget. Of the county's undesignated revenue, the real estate tax makes up nearly 35% of the total budget. This next chart shows where the money goes. As we've stated, the schools receive 67% of the total budget when you include the all school funds plus the commitment to debt service, and then you can see the remaining 33% goes to the county. Next chart shows county funding for schools over the past 10 years. The transfer for fiscal year 26 is set at $64.3 million. Talk a little bit about the addenda that were added to this year's budget. Transfer to the school operating fund was increased just over $2.7 million. New positions, reclassifications for public safety, which includes firefighters and the sheriff, $1.3 million. New positions, reclassifications throughout the rest of the county were just over $600,000. A 3% compensation increase for county employees is right at $1.2 million. The Western Virginia Regional Jail, that's to cover the increased cost of the per diem rate and estimated population increases, is just over $500,000. Transfer to capital, that's to provide 1% of replacement costs of county assets. That will give us a $1.3 million allocation in total. And that's at just over $500,000. Other operating cost increase include professional services, insurance, and other general operating, just over $500,000. Outside or other agency increases, $333,000. Sheriff's Office for vehicle replacement and equipment upgrades, roughly $300,000. Information technology upgrades, including hardware, software, and telecommunications, about $160,000. Fire and EMS increases, $129,000, and fire and rescue agency increases at $65,000.
A couple items I wanted to bring to your attention. One of the items is that when we provide compensation increases for our employees, they're effective July 1st. Several of our neighboring jurisdictions provide a COLA adjustment on July 1st and also then later in the year implement a merit increase. That's something I would like to bring forward to you in the future to discuss that. We did that many, many years ago, and I think that would be a good path for us to take forward. It is important that we transfer a sufficient amount of funding to county capital for maintenance items as our buildings have expanded. We got a little behind with the ratio of the amount of funding that we need to put into that category, so I think it's important that we maintain what we have and take good care of those things proactively as opposed to addressing them when they become issues and problems. The sheriff's office, through the years, the vehicle replacements have, the number of vehicles, and Mark might be able to speak a little bit more specifically to this than I can, but the number of vehicles that we replaced in order to be on a regular cycle and replace the vehicles when they need to be replaced has decreased because the cost of the vehicles has increased at a rate higher than we've added funding. So this will provide enough funding to replace
Five.
5 a year. We really would like to replace 7 a year. That would be the ideal situation. So as we move forward into future years, I think that we can gradually implement that and phase it in. They also need a contract renewed that's related to their body cams and taser systems that's included in that. And then our IT area needs some just standard hardware, software, telecommunications updates that result from increased cost of those kinds of services.
Talk a little bit about some position adjustments. First, we'll talk about fiscal year 25 off-cycle position adjustments. As we talked about earlier in the sheriff's office, we added 8 FTEs for jail deputies in November of 2024. In the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, 1 legal assistant position was added by the Comp Board in July. And then in social services, a family services specialist was added during the social services budget reconciliation. We also had 1 reduction of 1 classified site attendant. The non-classified funding is still in the budget, but the classified FTE was removed for fiscal year 26. So the total net increase in base FTEs was 9.4. Talk about new positions that were added for fiscal year 26. In human resources, we added a benefit coordinator to support existing staff with employee benefits and state reporting mandates. We added a security analyst, was added to support continuous monitoring and remediations of county information systems against cyber attacks. In the sheriff's office, we added an investigator position to assist in solving cyber crimes and child fraud and exploitation crimes. 12 FTEs were added to support a nighttime 12-hour shift for paid fire in eastern Montgomery, and an administrative coordinator was added to support revenue recovery and financial reporting in fire and EMS.
As we go through the positions, if you recall last year, we had a very long list of new positions that had been requested, and many of them I felt needed to be funded. We strategically planned how to fund those, and some of the positions that Mark has spoken about on this slide as well as on the following slide were planned for. There are some that are new that we didn't have requests for last year, and some have shifted slightly, but one of the benefits coordinator position has been on the list for a long time. As we've increased the number of employees and the number of benefits that we provide, that's really a critical need. I believe that all of the positions that we're requesting this year are critical, but that especially is one that we've been deferring year after year, and we really need to address at this time. Also on this slide, I'll let Mark go into a little bit more detail, but some of these positions were included in what we had projected going forward as well, and they're important to maintain the properties that we're gaining, and Mark will talk a little more about that, but again, it's important that we take care of the things that we have and are good stewards of those things. The library position was included last year, and we had planned to add that in the current FY26 budget. It shifted, the director of the library shifted the position that he needed after he further evaluated that, but it was included as well.
Okay, in general services, we added a building inspector to ensure superior customer service to the building community. We also added a groundskeeper to support the 30% increase in county acreage that needs to be maintained annually. And a housekeeper was added to support housekeeping needs at new facilities such as the Magistrate and Court Services Building and the Office of Elections Building. In Parks and Recreation, with the addition of Teal Park, 2 maintenance workers were added to support field maintenance. And then in the library, we added 2 library associate positions. One was a full-time position and one was a part-time non-classified position to support library programming. Total.
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Total new FTEs are 22. If you take the off-cycle positions of 9.4 plus the 22 new positions, total increase in FTEs was 31.4.
I wanted to share with you that I had spoken with our Parks and Rec Director, Mitchell Hawk, several times about the number of maintenance workers. And the reason that we need 2 maintenance workers, one of the main reasons is that Teal Park will be finished fairly soon, and it's going to be available 7 days a week. We think that people will use that throughout the year, and it's really important that we maintain, as I have said throughout this evening, our property as we bring those online.
All right, the next slide shows the fiscal year 26 proposed budget and also an updated version of that budget with the new school numbers that we received last Friday. So the total budget, all funds, in the proposed budget is $268,579,230. That's an increase of $11.2 million over the revised budget after we added 2.7 to the budget after we adopted the budget last year. So we adopted the budget. When you look in your budget book, it's going to show a $14 million increase because that 2.7 was added after the adoption of the budget. So total new money is the 11.2. The next column over has the updated numbers that the schools received last Friday. And with that update, the total budget would be $269,565,321. And that would be a $12.2 million increase.
As we conclude, we've presented a lot of information to you this evening, and it's a lot, I know, to take in. So as you review this information and questions arise during the coming week, please email them to me directly, and then I can make sure that we respond appropriately and quickly to you. And of course, as always, we'll respond to the entire board when we do provide those. To recap the next steps, we will have a joint meeting with the Montgomery County Public Schools on March 17th. That will be held at the Government Center in Multipurpose Room 2 so that we can stream that, since it will be an important meeting to discuss the budget. And then I'm not going to read the rest of the dates to you, but I did want to really thank the staff that's helped work so diligently on this process. Terry, Scott, and Chris have listened to me talk on and on about the budget. Marty's listened to me talk about the budget. Mark and Randy, the budget analyst, have worked diligently. Susan Dickerson in our finance department has helped us administratively, and there is absolutely no way we could have done these things without Jen Harris and Durley Aguilar with their help putting everything together. So thank you, guys. You're a great team. I really appreciate you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Angie. And just to reiterate, the process for us is, Todd, you have a question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I asked several months ago, in this budget, does it have anything in there about volunteers?
Yes, sir. We have included the funding that the volunteers requested, and we're also going to bring to you, as we go throughout the process, of one-time items. The requests were made through the Fire and Rescue Commission, and the Fire and Rescue Commission included those. We're also going to talk to you about an incentive program that we can provide for them, as well as some additional safety equipment. So we will be addressing those items.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so our normal process is, we're handed all of this information. We'll take some time to digest it and then just email questions to staff. That way, any questions asked can be copied on all of us. So thank you very much for the presentation, and we will move on to public address for this evening. I do not have anybody signed up for public address tonight. However, anybody in the audience is welcome to come forward. We've got the guidelines for public address on the screen, and if you come forward, state your name, you have 4 minutes. Seeing nobody come forward, we'll go ahead and close public address. We do not have an addendum tonight, so our next item will be to go into work session to discuss a letter of support for Medicaid Directed Payments Program. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been motioned and seconded. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Chair DeMons?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay, this letter of support, Supervisor Biggs brought it forward, and we also have with us this evening Bill Flattery from Carillion, who is able to answer any questions, or able to try to answer any questions related to this letter that we have, and I'll go ahead and give it to Supervisor Biggs to introduce.
Okay, thank you for putting this on, and I'd like to ask Mr. Flattery to come up and sort of talk about, we've read the letter, but sort of talk about the importance, because this is something that we see a lot in the press lately, and we have the New River Valley Carillion Center right in Montgomery County. So can you express to us why this is so important and for the audience?
Yes, Honorable Biggs, thanks very much. First, the last time I was here, I talked about Carillion's kidney transplant program, and you all provided a resolution in support of that program. It's moving forward, and we expect to have approval for that sometime soon. So my sincere thanks for that. There's a lot of moving parts in the federal government with the budget process now, where Congress has set a target for cuts totaling $2 trillion, and the Senate has set a target for $350 billion of cuts. There's a big difference between those numbers. And until the number is set, we won't know what's going to happen. But when there are cuts to that extent, we have to make sure that we're advocating to protect some of the Medicaid funds that are provided for our patients locally. Because Medicaid in and of itself does not cover costs for healthcare systems typically. It's a program that is funded half with federal dollars and half with state dollars. And typically, the states will decide how much they pay. They get the matching funds from the federal government. This specific program has the states directing what managed care organizations who cover Medicaid patients will pay, and the federal government has to fund that piece of it. This is a preemptive measure. The Virginia Healthcare and Hospital Association has drafted this letter and asked local municipalities, local leaders to adopt this and send it to their Congress people. That's what's under consideration tonight.
Well, along those lines, is this something, we have the letter directed toward Congressman Griffith, but should this also be directed to our two senators?
It would not hurt if that were the case.
Okay. I went through the letter, and I did find one typo in the next to last paragraph where it says I guess we're talking about we, if we were to agree to send this on behalf of the board. But at this point, I don't have any questions about it. I'm very supportive of it, but I don't know if some of my other board members might have questions about it. So I'll turn it back to Chair DeMott's.
Okay. So, does anybody have any questions for Mr. Flattery or about this in general? Supervisor King?
What makes you think they're going to cut it?
We don't know. If the cuts are 350 billion to 2 trillion, everything's on the table. Medicaid is so important to your constituents, our fellow citizens, that cuts to Medicaid would be really pernicious to our community.
Oh, yeah. I mean, your facility is in my district. But I was just wondering why this is coming up this year and it never has before.
Because I think it's because the cuts that are being considered are draconian in nature.
Okay, thank you.
And I might add, also, you guys have talked to the General Assembly members about
Yes.
this. Okay.
Yes, we have advocacy daily.
Vice Chair Fitchkowski?
Yeah, I'll get a little bit more specific on that. So what you're saying is that you're not sure what the cuts are going to be. You know it's a big number that's being thrown around for cuts, and you think that Medicaid is going to lose funding just because of that, not because of anything the hospitals are doing, but just because it's across-the-board cuts.
We simply don't know. We don't know if Medicaid's going to be on the chopping block or not. We don't know at this point. It's a preemptive measure just to let our federal folks know that this is important to us. So please take that into consideration as the process moves forward.
Okay, the reason I ask that is because it seems like there have been other changes that have come down from the federal government, and they usually say if the changes aren't met, then funding will be cut. But that's not the case here.
No,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you for that question.
Do we have a Supervisor Grafsky?
I guess not really a question, but maybe just an observation. Having the only maternity unit in Montgomery County, you guys probably have a disproportionate share of Medicaid patients, right? Visiting the hospital there between mothers and newborn children. Is that
Yes, sir.
accurate?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So obviously, this would affect, to the earlier point, the constituents in our area and other because other than going north towards Salem or Roanoke, there's not a whole lot of options if you head south.
That's a good point. There's a peculiarity with Medicaid that if you're not otherwise eligible and you're pregnant, the mother's covered for the delivery, the baby's covered when the baby's born. So there's a significant number of the patients at the New River Valley Medical Center particularly that are covered by Medicaid.
Well, and I'll just comment that I think that this letter is poignant in highlighting something that is very critical to our community. I did ask Marty for his advice, and he said it would be fine to adopt this, or not adopt it, but have consensus within work session on whether or not we want to send the letter. Does anybody have any more questions? Can we do a thumbs up or down on whether or not we want to send that? Okay, I'm seeing a unanimous support for sending the letter. Thank you, sir, for bringing this to our attention, and then we'll work. And you would like to send it not only to our congressmen, but also to our senators. So we will, we can draft that and get that taken care of and sent. Thank you so much for being here tonight and spending time with us.
Yeah, thank you all for your service to our community. It's important work that you're doing. It's recognized and appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that is the only item that we had in work session today. Is there a motion to come out of work session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay, moving on to items of consent. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay, the next item is under new business. This is our Verizon BEAD application. You probably recall the resolution we passed at our January 27th meeting. That is for the BEAD, or Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Grant Funding. In January, we passed this resolution for Citizens Telephone, Gigabeam Networks, and Zytel. This is a similar application from Verizon to receive BEAD grant funds. Does not financially encumber us. It's just a letter of support. Angie, did you have anything to add to that?
You covered it all.
Oh, well, thanks. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Next item is an MCPS capital funds transfer. This is for just over $1 million. And this is for the school capital fund to specific school projects. We do have some staff from the schools here to answer any questions. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion on this? Supervisor Grafsky?
So, I'm trying to understand, so I just would like a little more information about what the project is, what these funds are being used for. I mean, I read it was fuel tanks.
Yeah, please do come up, just a little bit of information. I know the big line item on this request is for just under $900,000 related to fuel tanks.
Good evening, everyone. You want me to answer what it is, or you want a more
Yeah, I
specific
mean,
question?
yeah, so fuel tanks. I assume-
Historically, we buy our diesel and our gas with credit cards, and the bus drivers and our vehicle operators go to the typical gas station and use them and fill up. And for some of those, we get discounts, some of them we don't. Eddie could probably talk a little bit more about that, but so we looked at it a couple months ago about, is there a better way to do this? And we tried to do some research with other divisions in the region. What do they do and how do they save money? We spend about $1 million annually on diesel, fuel, and gas. So we thought, was there a better way to do that? So we did some research. We put out an RFP, I think in November, about can we have our own gas tanks throughout the county? We would have 4 diesel tanks, 10,000 gallon tanks, and 1 gasoline tank for the other vehicles that aren't, the buses and the trucks. And we put out an RFP, and that's what came back to us at that $800 and something thousand dollars. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but the idea would be, in doing that, while there's a capital cost up front, depending on the actual cost of a gallon of diesel and a gallon of gas, it could save us between $200,000 and $400,000 annually. So we thought it was a worthwhile investment. There are some logistics involved where our bus drivers now, who could typically go as they're driving home and gas up at the Exxon or the Kroger, they would have to structure that in one of the 4 locations in each of the communities in the county.
Okay. And so then, does the county have a similar type of system? Or
The county does for the schools do now. We have a state contract, and we use gas cards at various fueling stations. We did, Dr. Bregan and I spoke about this early on, and if the schools move forward with this, he offered for us to be able to use that as well, and then we can reimburse the schools for our portion of that. I think it'll be important to see where the stations are located and that kind of thing, and see how that will help work with the county's needs.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, for us, we talked about that with Basil. They're 10,000 gallon tanks, so if the county wanted to use it, we would just have to fill them more quickly. It'd be the same regardless. So I'm sure we could work something out. Do you know the exact locations, Ed? You can share that?
Sure. So in Blacksburg, Price's Fork Elementary would be a diesel fueling location. Eastern Montgomery High School would be another diesel location. The Operations Center here in Christiansburg would be a diesel, and then that's where we would have the gas tank at as well. And then Auburn High School would be the last diesel location.
Sorry, are these tanks above ground, below ground?
Above ground.
Above ground?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right.
Okay, do we have any other questions? Supervisor Bone?
Can you all or the county do any futures buying or anything like that?
You want to speak to how we would buy the gas, Ed? Cooperative?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Can we do futures when we buy the gas? How would we purchase the gas?
So what we would do is, when it would be time to fill the tanks up, we would basically shop around, see who has the lowest price per gallon at these bulk suppliers, and we would go that direction, try to get the cheapest price for each fueling.
Can I ask a follow-up?
Sure.
Considering the other school divisions in the region, is there any chance to do bulk purchases in cooperation?
That's a great idea. That's something we would definitely pursue. The larger number, the more we buy, the cheaper it would be per gallon and per cost. I would definitely look into that, yes.
Supervisor Kitts?
So help me to understand this, because you put in the budget that we just got, still going through everything, and then we're going to talk on Monday about fuel and everything else. But this wasn't categorized in that or how the fuel was going to be done. Am I missing something here? Just on how this is being done, and we put it in the budget, we're proposing this, but now we want to put the tanks that we proposed for the
This-
fuel for later?
No, this is a capital transfer, so
Yeah, I
the,
know, but it's just, I'm just trying to connect the two and connect the dots on as we change the fuel program for the schools. So am I missing?
I understand your question. I think he's asking if you captured the savings, the potential savings for fuel cost in the budget that you proposed.
Because I was just trying to correspond the two of, we put this in the budget, this is how it's going to go, but this is how we have it now, because now we're going to ask for the tanks to be put in order to save that. But we haven't approved this one, but we already planned a budget for this. Does that make sense?
I think so. I mean, I don't know the actual savings until they're realized, and people could promise me the world, Supervisor Kitts, but I want to see it before I can actually come to you and say, that really did materialize the way we thought it would. We anticipate with the prices we would pay for diesel and for gas, it would be much cheaper to buy it in bulk and store it and use it ourselves and take away that retail, markup that we all pay. So in this budget, you'll have a fuel cost of about $1 million is what it was last year. There was no increase. And then if we get these tanks installed, which is a capital expense, as Supervisor Demott said, there's a time lag there too. Hopefully we get them up and running in July and August. I'm not 100% sure how long it would take and how long it takes for the steel to be ordered and assembled and all put together. But then if we came to you next year and said, hey, listen, we've been using these tanks, it's our own gas, we're purchasing it, and instead of $1 million in next year's budget, we actually saved $300,000 this year, we're going to ask for $700,000 moving forward. That's how I envision it would materialize. I don't know that exactly what that number would look like. We had estimates that range from $200,000 to $400,000. But they would probably manifest in next year's budget.
So the magic working word in that sentence, and I hope all y'all heard that, was hopefully. You know how I feel about hope, and hope should never be used as a planning consideration. I've been pretty consistent about that one. I'm just trying to connect the dots in this one and, make sure that the two correspond, because I don't have a problem with you needing to get this and how it plans to go out in order to make sure that we save money going forward. I'm just a little apprehensive on the planning of a budget being issued or being requested and then going back and asking for the tanks to be put in place so you can move forward. I'm just trying to connect everything and get it in a line. So the tank should be requested, showing you have a plan in order to get the fuel, in order to be able to save the money going forward. And it just seems like the two aren't jiving. That's just trying to play, I'm trying to equal it out. So we can talk about it at the joint session. I just want to I just got to get a better feel for it because it just feels like it wasn't completely planned the way it probably should have in advance. Am I making sense with this? Sometimes I may go off on my own little tangent. So you usually get the tanks, you usually plan, here's your plan. We're going to do this. At this date, we're going to request the tanks. In order to be able to go forward, this is how we're going to go with the plan in order to be able to request the fuel. But this is our plan. This is what our possible savings is. So this is the timeline we need to do in order to get the fuel tanks put in and everything else. So the county has the ability to be able to make sure that we're good with everything going in line.
I understand what you're saying, but to say that we don't have a plan is not accurate. We have a definite plan. I can't move forward until you all sign the appropriation. I can't have a contract with the vendor to install the tanks until I have the appropriation that's allocated. Otherwise, it's, fiscally malfeasance on my part. I can't promise to pay something that I don't have the money for. Once we get that money, then we'll get the timeline of installation. We already know where to purchase the gas and all. We're going to go with the cheapest price. Do I know exactly what that's going to be 6 months out? No. But I can guarantee, this isn't hope, that wholesale is less than retail.
Yeah, but that wasn't the question.
Well, you said it's just hopeful.
No, you said hopefully this is what we
I hope the savings will be 200 and 400,000, but I can't predict the diesel market in a month, and neither can you. So how am I going to predict that?
Okay, so that wasn't the point I was trying to make. I wasn't talking about that. I'm talking about being able to have it done so this is the plan we have. So we're going to plan to ask the county for the money for the tanks, because this is what our overall plan is, to be able to go forward and ask for fuel in order to be able to get the plan. Understand, want to incorporate it, bring it inside, save a little money on the overall from getting it from everybody else. That's fine. The point I'm making is that it all comes through as an initial plan in order to do the request, probably before we started going through budget cycle, so we'd be able to get it and make sure that it all equaled up. So the savings, got it. We don't know the price of fuel. Can't get a contract because you got to get the appropriation approved first. But it should have all come in one set of plans and going, this is what we're trying to do. This is what we plan on doing. We're going to request on this date. If this gets approved on this date, then we will move forward with the plan going from there.
Understood.
I think maybe this might be best taken offline at this point, unless.
Yeah, that's what I said. That's yeah, I'm fine with that.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
When would you like this approved?
Tonight? If you don't approve, you don't approve it. That's,
Right.
that's your
We can approve
prerogative.
it at any point in time in the near future if we wanted to. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah,
So-
the timeframe for us is just waiting for the order. Once we get this contract signed, it's going to take time for them to get the steel and get it manufactured and implemented. We were hoping to have it ready for the summer, for July, but if y'all want to pause,
Can I ask a follow-up?
Yeah, and let me just say one thing first. It's important to note probably that the school board has approved this request, which is why we're being asked to appropriate the funds tonight within the school's capital fund to this specific project. Go ahead.
Chair DeMotts makes a great point saying why you wouldn't have talked to us about it yet. This is the first opportunity that you could have talked to us about it. Could you talk to us about how long you've been working on this?
The RFP went out in November. We were probably planning this from August or September internally, what it would look like and the feasibility of what parts of the county we could put these tanks and where the locations would be most appropriate, where we had the space. And the RFP went out early November of 2024, and I think it came back still in November.
And is this something we can vote on tonight?
It is,
Wanted to-
it is on our agenda to vote on tonight.
And I'd like to move that forward.
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I understand the school board already approved it, so that's not the issue. I was just trying to make sense of it. I understand that, and we're just voting on the allocation of funds. I was just trying to get sense of the plan, that's all.
Yeah,
For clarity.
the process to
Yes,
get to this
that's
point.
all.
Gotcha. Do we have any more questions? Supervisor Biggs?
Not a question, but just a couple comments. Okay, so this, if you all recall, came back in some of our notes from the school county liaison meetings. I reported that back to y'all, that the schools were interested in doing this. And then there was some talk, like maybe the county would like to, do it also. So, so they've sort of been thinking and talking about this for a while. And the other thing, I watched the school board meeting. I know there were some concerns about, the placement of the tanks as related to security and safety and all of that kind of thing. And I feel like when you're going to do a project like that, of course, you vet all those things and you know what you're doing. So if you just want to comment on that to reassure people, I saw the majority of the school board wants to move ahead with that, and that's why we're voting on it tonight. Do you want to comment on anything else?
Obviously, safety is the number one concern, and we wouldn't put these tanks anywhere they wouldn't be safe. It's in the proposal what they were looking for. I don't know the logistics. I'm not well into manufacturing steel, but they're double walled, they're safety oriented. There's spill valve things where they capture any kind of spillage that would go over. Obviously, they have to satisfy the Department of Environmental Quality requirements and all that stuff, and the parameters within the county and the town for installing any type of device like this. So yeah, there would be ballards around it, there'd be gates around it, there'd be safety measures that you would expect in something like this.
Yeah, to assure people. Thank you.
Any more questions? Okay. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Mr. Grafsky? Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
7 ayes.
And thank you, Dr. Bragan, for coming tonight and being with us. I appreciate your presence. Moving on, the final item in our new business is Falling Branch Corporate Park Phase 2, Site 2 appropriation. These are grant funds received that we need to appropriate to the specific projects outlined in the resolution.
So
Ms.
moved.
Second.
Okay. It's been motioned and seconded. Ms. Hill, do you have something to say about this?
I do have one thing to add. We have funds in the county CIP fund for the Falling Branch project. Hold on, I'm still on the school item. Sorry about that. Okay, there we go. The VDOT Economic Development funds require that we would receive investment of $3.4 million by April of 2028 on Falling Branch Corporate Park Phase 2, Lot 2. We have entered into agreements like this in the past, and there are already funds appropriated for Falling Branch, as I said. There are also funds that can be used for land purchases in the future for economic development. So I feel like I believe that while there are some constraints on those funds, there's a great opportunity that we will be able to get investment by that deadline. And if we cannot do that, we already have funding to take care of that. If that occurred that we didn't meet the April 2028 date, the payback is phased in, so it's not all due at one time.
Okay. Is there any discussion on this item?
Just one question.
Sure.
This is Town of Christiansburg matching funds. Is Christiansburg putting in 300?
Yes, they did put in $300,000 for construction cost of the road.
Okay. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Grafsky?
Aye.
Ms. Bone?
Aye.
Mr. Kitts?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Mr. Fidzikowski?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair DeMotts?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Okay, and County Attorney's report.
No report, Madam Chair.
Trying to get out. Is it still light outside? Probably not, even with the time change. County Administrator's report. Ms. Hill.
This is almost a record meeting. It probably is a record meeting for a meeting in which the budget was presented. I only have two quick things. Michelle Braun came and spoke with us. She's the executive director of the Community Health Center. She came on February the 10th with a project that she wanted us to help move forward with the opioid abatement funding and a grant to help them with their new facility. We have met with her since. Some questions arose during the meeting, and staff has met with her. The Opioid Abatement Authority has very recently changed some of their guidelines, and so we're going to have to take a little bit different approach with some of that. before we bring it back to you, we need to vet that out more thoroughly. I'm fairly certain that we would not be able to partner with them to get OAA funding for the construction of the building, but we do think that we can share in a portion of the A&E cost. She's traveling on business this week, so she was not able to come, but I shared that I would let her know what the outcome is as we move forward, and we'll schedule another time to meet with her. The second thing is there's going to be a dedication service, I think, this Saturday at the Blacksburg Library for their outdoor space, so I'll send you more information about the specific time and details of that.
Great. Thank you. We'll move on to board member reports. Supervisor Grasky.
I guess just my only thing is I just want to recognize spring sports or winter sports, sorry, wrapping up, and I know we've had a lot of competitive teams and athletes here in Montgomery County that finished up their seasons very well. So I just wanted to share my congratulations to them.
Supervisor Kitts.
No report.
Supervisor Biggs.
Just a couple things. I think you all are aware that Chris Taylor was named the Executive Director for New River Valley Community Services at our last meeting. And then I talked to Supervisor Fidzikowski about going to an event they had at the library in Christiansburg on March 1st, and they'd had one in Blacksburg before that, but it was to recognize the book that was the oral history of Miss Nanny Berger Hairston. It's a book well worth reading. The event was very well attended in Christiansburg. It was packed. And the history is so rich, and it concerns our county. And we're talking about a woman that was born like maybe 50 years after the Civil War ended. So if you're interested in it, it is well worth reading. And I was really happy about it because my third grade class, when I was at Harding Avenue, nominated her for an award, and she won it for Strong Men, Strong Women in Richmond. So her legacy as a community leader, as well as her husband's, John, is well noted by many, many fellow citizens through all the different community groups in which she served. So I just wanted to give credit there. And Steve, I think you should read it.
Hand it over.
That's all.
Okay. Supervisor Bone.
I'd like to put on the agenda in the future meeting in the next 2 weeks, reappointment of me to the PSA board. Since I was censored, I've attended every single meeting, just as I said that I would. And all the meetings that I missed last year, I could have told you I would have missed them. I don't see missing any more meetings for this fiscal year, and maybe even after. So I would like to be reappointed to the PSA.
Okay. All right, next is Supervisor King.
I don't have no report. I would just like to say I sure do appreciate everybody's support.
Okay, and then Vice Chair Fidzikowski.
I had the pleasure of going to an event this past Friday at Shawsville Middle School, where one of the teachers was honored by the Milliken Foundation out of California. Teacher's name is Anna Drew, and she was very surprised when they gave her a check for $25,000. What I thought was really great about the whole thing, and I'm sure Supervisor Biggs would attest to that, along with Angie, that the kids were extremely enthusiastic. And I think the demand was for a pizza party, so I have a feeling they're going to be getting pizza. But the amazing thing about this award from this foundation is you don't apply for it. Your school doesn't even fill out an application for you. The foundation finds you, and I thought, that is incredible. They reached out here to Virginia and right in little old Shawsville and found a teacher that qualified. So it was really a great presentation. So that's all I got.
That was a super fun event to attend. We had a great time. I guess all I have is just a reminder of our joint meeting next Monday in MP2, starting at 6:30 for dinner. And then, Angie, keep your inbox open because I'm sure you're going to be getting emailed budget questions.
I'll be ready.
All right, and if there's nothing else, meeting is adjourned.
Alrighty.